Armin had always believed that the universe, if left alone, would politely ignore him. It was a comforting theory, one he tested daily by doing nothing remarkable. That morning had begun like all others, with a cup of coffee so precisely measured it bordered on ritual, and a quiet promise to himself that nothing unexpected would happen. The promise lasted exactly 12 minutes. The sky made a sound. Not thunder, not an explosion, but something disturbingly intentional, like fabric being torn by careful hands. Armin froze mid-sip, staring upward as a thin fracture spread across the air itself, glowing faintly, as if reality had decided to malfunction in the most dramatic way possible. He blinked once, twice, then muttered, "No," with the quiet confidence of someone hoping denial might fix things. Something fell out of the fracture. It wasn't debris. It wasn't fire. It was a woman. She landed with surprising grace, knees bending slightly as if she had rehearsed the motion. For a moment, the street held its breath. Armin stared, coffee forgotten, as she straightened and looked around with calm, searching eyes. She looked human. Perfectly human, except for the ears, long, elegant, unmistakably wrong. Armin took a slow step back. "I didn't see anything," he whispered to himself. "This is not my problem. This is someone else's existential crisis." The woman turned her head toward him. That was unfortunate. Their eyes met, and for a brief second, Armin considered pretending to faint. It seemed like a reasonable strategy. Before he could commit to it, she walked toward him with quiet urgency, her movements fluid in a way that felt slightly out of sync with everything around her. "Excuse me," she said, her voice smooth but carrying an odd rhythm, like music played at the wrong speed. "Can you direct me to the nearest stable gravity authority?" Armin blinked. "The nearest what?" "Gravity authority," she repeated, as if that clarified everything. He looked around, half expecting someone to jump out and explain the joke. No one did. "We have municipalities," he offered weakly. "And a bakery 2 streets down, very stable, excellent bread." She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded slightly, as if filing his answer under deeply concerning. Up close, the difference was clearer. Her eyes held a faint shimmer, reflecting light a fraction too slowly, and her ears, there was no ignoring them, shifted subtly, as though listening to things beyond sound. "I am not supposed to be here," she said. "Good," Armin replied quickly. "That makes 2 of us." A flicker of something crossed her face, almost amusement. Behind them, a car alarm suddenly started, then cut off mid-sound, like it had reconsidered its life choices. Armin glanced at it, then back at her. "You're causing that, aren't you?" "Unintentionally." "Fantastic." He rubbed his temples, already regretting every decision that had led him to this moment, including waking up. "Look," he said, lowering his voice, "if this is some kind of performance, it's very convincing. But I'm not the audience you're looking for." She stepped closer. "You saw me arrive, that makes you involved." "I disagree strongly." "You are still here." Armin opened his mouth, then paused. She wasn't wrong. That was the problem. He was still standing there, still looking at her, still not walking away like a sensible person. He sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. "This is how bad decisions start," he muttered. "What is?" "Helping strangers who fall out of the sky." Another flicker of that almost smile. "Then you will help me." He hesitated, glancing once more at the sky, now perfectly normal, as if it had done nothing wrong. His life, he realized, had just presented him with a choice. Ignore this and return to safety, or step forward into something he did not understand. He exhaled slowly. "If I say yes," he said, "I want it on record that this is a terrible idea." "I do not understand record," she replied. "Of course you don't." He gestured down the street. "Fine, we walk, you explain, I panic quietly." She nodded. "Agreed." As they moved, the air around them felt subtly different, like the world was paying attention. Armin shoved his hands into his pockets, trying to appear casual, which mostly resulted in him looking like someone escorting a very unusual problem. "So," he said after a moment, "what's your name?" "Lyra." He nodded. "All right, Lyra, welcome to Earth. We don't have gravity authorities, but we do have a lot of confusion. You'll fit right in." For the first time, she laughed, soft, brief, but undeniably real. And for reasons Armin couldn't explain, that worried him more than anything else. They did not get far before reality started behaving like it had opinions. At first, it was subtle. A streetlight flickered as they passed beneath it, not once, but in a precise rhythm like a signal. Armin slowed, eyeing it suspiciously. If that starts spelling words, I'm leaving, he muttered. It is not communicating, Lyra said calmly. It is adjusting. That's worse. They turned into a narrower street, quieter, the kind of place where sound should settle instead of echo. But their footsteps carried strangely, repeating half a second too late, like the world was struggling to keep up with them. Armin stopped abruptly, causing Lyra to take one more step before noticing. Did you hear that? He asked. Yes. My footsteps just disagreed with me. That is a minor distortion. Minor, he repeated. Good. I was worried it might be major and I'd have to panic properly. She almost smiled again, but her attention shifted, her long ears tilting slightly as if catching something distant. They are closer. Armin followed her gaze, though there was nothing to see. They, he said carefully, are the kind of they that ruin your day, aren't they? Yes, of course they are. The air ahead shimmered, not visibly at first, but enough to make the edges of buildings soften, as if someone had smudged reality with an invisible hand. Armin squinted. I don't like that, he said. That looks like something I can't argue with. It is not something you can argue with, Lyra replied. Excellent. I was hoping my main skill would remain useless. She reached for his wrist, her grip firm but not forceful. We need to move. I was already moving, he said, though he let her pull him along. They picked up speed, turning corners without direction, guided by instinct, or in Lyra's case, something far more precise. The distortion followed, not chasing in a straight line, but folding space in subtle ways, appearing where it should not be. Once, Armin swore he saw the same alley twice, like a poorly rendered memory. Okay, he said between breaths, I'm going to ask the obvious question. What exactly is chasing us? Lyra hesitated, which Armin found deeply unhelpful. They are not entities in the way you understand, she said finally. They correct inconsistencies. Inconsistencies like you. Yes, and now me by association. Yes, he let out a short laugh. I knew helping you would ruin my life. I just didn't expect it to be so scientifically aggressive. They ducked into a small, empty shop, the door creaking as if surprised to be used. Inside, the air felt thicker, quieter. Lyra released his wrist, stepping toward the center of the room, her focus intense. For a moment, we are less visible here, she said. Armin leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Less visible to what? Reality's quality control team. That is not entirely inaccurate. He nodded slowly. Great. I'm being audited by the universe. Outside, the distortion passed by, the light bending unnaturally through the dusty window. For a brief second, everything went silent. Completely silent. Armin opened his mouth to comment, then stopped, unsettled by the absence of even his own breathing. Then sound returned all at once. He exhaled sharply. I don't like when existence pauses, he said. It feels optional. Lyra turned to him, studying his face. You are adapting quickly. I'm not adapting, he replied. I'm coping poorly but consistently. That earned a clearer hint of amusement. She stepped closer, her expression softening just slightly. There is something I need to tell you. Armin straightened. That sentence never ends well. There is a way for me to leave this planet. Good, you should do that. It is not simple. Of course it's not. She gestured vaguely, as if the explanation existed just beyond language. The method requires activation. It is a structure, not entirely here. Armin stared at her. You're saying there's an invisible thing that can take you away. Yes, and I assume it comes with more problems. It does not return. He blinked. It doesn't return, he repeated, meaning you leave and that's it. Yes. He pushed himself off the wall, pacing slightly. Okay, good, that's very final. He glanced at her. So what's the issue? You activate it, you go, universe stops trying to delete you, I go home and pretend I hallucinated everything. She held his gaze. It requires two. Armin stopped walking. No, he said immediately. No, absolutely not. I already regret step 1. I'm not doing step 2. You would not survive staying involved, she said calmly. I might survive by leaving, he countered. You have already been seen. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. That was inconveniently logical. A faint distortion rippled through the shop's far wall. They are not far, Lyra said. Armin looked at it, then at her, then back again. This is a terrible decision, he said quietly. Yes. He let out a long breath, something between a sigh and a reluctant acceptance. I was having a very normal day, he added. It was boring, I miss it. Lyra said nothing. He glanced at her one more time, then shook his head. Fine, he muttered. But if this structure doesn't have seats, I'm complaining the entire way. For the first time, her smile lingered. They found the structure where the city forgot how to exist properly. It stood between two buildings that should not have allowed the space for it. A thin, shifting outline pressing gently against reality like something waiting to be acknowledged. Armin stared at it, hands on his hips, as if disappointment might force it to become more normal. That, he said, is not a structure, that's a suggestion. It is enough, Lyra replied. It doesn't even look finished. It does not need to be. He stepped closer, squinting. The air around it folded inward, not dramatically, but with quiet certainty, like a page being turned by something unseen. I was expecting lights, he admitted. Maybe a dramatic hum. This feels underfunded. Lyra moved beside him. It is ready. Behind them, the world trembled. Not violently, but precisely. The distortion had found them again, closer now, pressing at the edges of everything. Windows reflected scenes that weren't there, shadows bent the wrong way, and for a brief second, Armin saw himself still standing across the street, not moving at all. That's new, he said. I don't like competing versions of me. They are correcting the timeline. Well, they can correct it without me in it, he replied quickly, then paused. Actually, no, bad phrasing. Lyra turned to him. Once we begin, there is no return. He let out a slow breath, glancing back at the street, at the ordinary world trying very hard to stay ordinary. You know, he said, this morning I was worried about whether I locked my door. You did not, she said. He blinked. That's incredibly unhelpful information right now. A ripple of silence passed through the street again, longer this time. The distortion crept closer, edges sharpening, intent clear. Armin looked at Lyra, really looked at her, at the calm in her expression, the uncertainty just beneath it, the way she stood between worlds as if she belonged fully to neither. You needed someone who makes bad decisions, he said. Yes. He nodded slowly. Good news, I'm overqualified. A faint smile. He stepped forward, then hesitated just long enough to feel it. Fear, sharp and undeniable. Not of what was ahead, but of everything he was leaving. The quiet routines, the predictable days, the safety of never choosing anything that mattered. Then he exhaled and something shifted. All right, he said. Let's go see how bad this gets. Lyra reached for his hand. This time, he didn't hesitate. The moment they touched the structure, the world did not break. It unfolded. Space bent inward, not collapsing but expanding in directions Armin couldn't name. The city peeled away without sound, without resistance, as if it had always been temporary. For a brief instant, he felt stretched between moments, every choice he hadn't made brushing past him like ghosts. Then they were somewhere else. Armin blinked, steadying himself. There was no ground, not exactly, but something that held them, responsive rather than solid. Around them, light moved with intention, forming patterns that almost resembled thought. Okay, he said after a moment. Now this feels more like what I was promised. Lyra released his hand, her posture easing, as if a weight she had carried too long had finally lifted. We are beyond their reach, she said. Good, Armin replied, because I was running out of ways to complain. He turned slowly, taking it in. The vastness didn't feel empty. It felt aware. Not watching exactly, but present in a way that made his earlier life seem small, contained. You brought me here because I'm unpredictable, he said. Yes. He nodded. That explains a lot about my life, actually. A cluster of distant lights shifted, gathering loosely, like a group forming out of curiosity. Armin pointed at them. What are those? Lyra followed his gaze. Observers. Of course they are, he said. Do they judge us? They try not to. Well, that's reassuring in a vague, unsettling way. He took a step forward, then another, testing the strange responsiveness beneath him. It adjusted, supporting him without resistance. He let out a quiet laugh, not nervous this time, but genuine. I have no idea what I'm doing, he admitted. That is why you are here, Lyra said. He looked back once, though there was nothing to see. No earth, no street, no version of himself left behind, just the absence of what had been. For the first time, it didn't bother him. All right, he said, turning forward again. Let's make some more terrible decisions. Lyra smiled, and this time it stayed. Together, they moved deeper into the unknown, not chased, not certain, but no longer standing still. Time did not pass the way Armin expected it to. which was already saying a lot considering he had recently stepped out of reality like it was a poorly designed room. Moments stretched when he paid attention and folded when he didn't, making it impossible to tell whether they had been there for minutes or something far less comforting. "I'm starting to think time and I need boundaries," he said, watching a distant wave of light curl in on itself like it had second thoughts. "You are adjusting," Lyra replied. "I am tolerating," he corrected. "Adjustment implies I understand something, I do not." They had learned to move without moving, to think in directions instead of steps. The space around them responded not just to motion, but to intention, which Armin found deeply inconvenient. Every stray thought nudged reality slightly, and he had far too many stray thoughts. At one point, he had accidentally created what he described as a philosophical staircase, which led nowhere but somehow made him feel judged. "I didn't mean to make that," he said. "It reflects uncertainty," Lyra explained. "It reflects overthinking," he muttered, and the staircase quietly dissolved, which he took as a personal victory. But something had followed them, not the distortions from before. Not the sharp, corrective presence that hunted inconsistencies. This was quieter, patient. It didn't chase, it waited. Armin felt it before he understood it, a subtle pressure at the edge of thought, like a question that hadn't been asked yet. He stopped, his expression shifting. "Tell me I'm imagining that," he said. Lyra didn't answer immediately. "That is not encouraging," he added. "It is not pursuing us," she said carefully. "That's worse," Armin replied. "Things that don't chase usually don't need to." The light around them dimmed slightly, not in brightness but in certainty. The distant observers stilled, their patterns tightening as if anticipating something. "It followed the transition," Lyra said. "It should not have been able to." Armin folded his arms, staring into the vastness like it owed him an explanation. "So we left reality to avoid being erased," he said, "and now something else is here because of us." "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I'm sensing a pattern. It's not a good one." The presence shifted, not closer, but clearer. It didn't have a form, not exactly, but Armin felt it organizing itself, shaping into something that could be understood. A voice followed, not heard, but recognized. "You are inconsistent." Armin blinked. "That's not new," he said. "I've been told that before." "It should not be possible," the presence continued. Lyra stepped slightly in front of him. "We are no longer within your system." "You are connected," it replied. Armin tilted his head. "Okay, I'm going to need you to clarify what you are before I start arguing properly." A pause, then, "I am correction beyond boundary." He sighed. "Of course you are." That's very on brand. The space around them tightened, not physically, but conceptually, as if possibilities were being narrowed. Armin felt it, the quiet pressure of being reduced to something simpler, something easier to resolve. "That feels bad," he said. "It is attempting to define us," Lyra said. "Well, I refuse," Armin replied. "I just got here, I'm not being defined this quickly." The presence shifted again. "You are an error." Armin let out a short laugh. "That's harsh, I prefer unexpected feature." He stepped forward before Lyra could stop him. "You said I'm inconsistent," he continued. "That's true, I make decisions I don't fully understand. I helped someone I shouldn't have. I left everything behind without a plan." He gestured vaguely at the impossible space around them. "And now I'm here, arguing with whatever you are." The pressure increased, but he didn't step back. "You can't fix that," he said. "Because it's not a mistake, it's a choice." For a moment, nothing responded. Then the presence hesitated. It was subtle, almost nothing. But in a place like this, hesitation mattered. Lyra watched it carefully. "It cannot process unpredictability without context," she said quietly. Armin grinned faintly. "Good, I've got plenty of that." He stepped closer, the space shifting under him, resisting and yielding at the same time. "You're trying to make everything consistent," he said, "but that's not how this works anymore. Not here, not with me." The presence faltered again, its structure loosening, as if the rules it followed no longer applied cleanly. "You are unresolved." "Exactly," Armin said, "and I plan to stay that way." The pressure broke. Not with force, not with sound, but with a quiet release, like something letting go of a question it could not answer. The presence unraveled, its form dissolving into the surrounding light, no longer focused, no longer certain. The observers shifted, their patterns widening again, the tension easing. Armin exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "I think I just argued something out of existence." Lyra looked at him, something like awe in her expression. You did not follow logic. I rarely do. That is why it worked. He considered that, then nodded. I'm going to add that to my list of questionable strengths. The space around them settled, more open now, less constrained. The faint sense of being watched softened into something almost welcoming. Armin looked out into it, no longer searching for edges. So, he said, what happens now? Lyra stepped beside him. Now we continue. He smiled slightly, not uncertain this time, not hesitant. Good, he said, because I'm starting to like not knowing. He took a step forward, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And this time, the universe didn't resist.